There is something you need to hear today, because what happened last night was not what anyone expected. Something changed in the way your soulmate sees you, not because you suddenly became someone different. Not because you tried to impress them. Not because you chased their attention, demanded their approval, or stood in front of them asking them to notice you. It happened because, for a moment, something hidden inside you was revealed, a talent you rarely talk about, a gift you may have kept private for years, something you learned quietly, practiced quietly, protected quietly, and perhaps even doubted quietly, and somehow, your soulmate accidentally discovered it. The reaction was not what you might imagine. They were shocked, not the kind of shock that disappears after a few seconds, but the kind that makes a person stop and reconsider everything they thought they knew about someone. They had already formed an image of you in their mind. They knew certain sides of you. They knew the way you speak, the way you react, the things you like, the things you avoid, the way you become quiet when something matters deeply to you. But there was another side, a hidden side. A side you never needed to display for attention, and last night, that side came into view. For a moment, your soulmate realized there were chapters of your life they had never read, there were abilities they had never witnessed. There were dreams you had never fully explained, there was a depth inside you that they had underestimated. And now they cannot look at you in exactly the same way. You may have wondered why some people never seem to recognize what is inside you until circumstances force them to see it. You may have experienced moments when you knew you were capable of something, but nobody around you seemed to understand. You may have spent time developing something privately because you did not want applause. Maybe you created something, maybe you wrote, maybe you sang, maybe you played an instrument, maybe you could draw, paint, design, cook, build, organize, speak, perform, teach, solve problems. Tell stories, understand people, create beauty, or turn ordinary things into something meaningful. Maybe your talent is something so natural to you that you never considered it extraordinary, and perhaps that is exactly why your soulmate was so surprised, because you were never trying to prove anything, you were simply being yourself. There is something powerful about a gift that does not need an audience. A talent becomes even more meaningful when it is developed in silence, you know. The hours nobody saw, you know, the attempts nobody witnessed, you know how many times you started over, you know the moments when you questioned whether you were actually good enough, you know how often you told yourself, maybe this isn't important, but it was important. Maybe not because it would make you famous, maybe not because everyone would praise you. It mattered because it was part of you, and last night, your soulmate saw that part. They did not expect it. They were caught completely off guard. There may have been a moment when they simply stared. Perhaps they asked, "You can do that?" And you may have laughed because, to you, it was not such a big deal. You may have shrugged, you may have tried to change the subject, you may have even felt embarrassed, but inside their mind, something was happening. They were connecting pieces, they were remembering little moments from the past. The times you seemed unusually focused, the things you said without explaining them, the strange little habits they never understood, the way you became completely absorbed whenever you were doing something you loved. Suddenly, those memories began making sense. They realized that there had always been clues. They simply had not recognized them. And this is where the story becomes deeper. Because your soulmate surprise may not have been only about your talent, it may have been about what your talent revealed about your character. They saw patience, they saw discipline, they saw creativity, they saw sensitivity, they saw determination, they saw a part of you that exists even when nobody is watching. And that can change the way someone understands love, because attraction can begin with appearance, connection can begin with conversation, chemistry can begin with a glance, but admiration grows when you discover the person beneath the surface. Last night, something beneath the surface became visible. And now your soulmate may be asking themselves questions they were not asking before. How much more don't I know about this person? What else have they kept hidden? How could I have missed this? Why didn't they tell me? How long have they been capable of this? And perhaps the biggest question of all, who are they becoming? That question carries more weight than you realize. Because your soulmate may have thought they understood the direction of your life. They may have assumed they knew what you wanted. They may have assumed they knew what you were capable of. But discovering this hidden talent challenged those assumptions. Suddenly, they saw possibilities. They saw potential. They saw doors opening. And perhaps they saw something even more personal. They saw a future in which your gift becomes part of your story. Maybe your talent has been waiting for the right moment. Maybe you have been holding it back because you feared judgment. Maybe you learned to keep your best qualities hidden because previous people did not appreciate them. Maybe you were made to believe that your gifts were impractical, unrealistic, strange, or unnecessary. Maybe someone once laughed at something you created. Maybe someone told you that you would never be good enough. Maybe you tried to share your talent before and received silence instead of encouragement, so you stopped showing it. You continued privately. You kept the gift alive, but you stopped putting it in front of people. And then came last night. The night when your soulmate accidentally saw what you had been hiding. They did not discover it because you demanded recognition. They discovered it naturally, and that matters, because sometimes the most powerful revelations happen when you are not trying to control how someone perceives you. You were simply living, and life revealed you. There is something beautiful about being discovered rather than performing for attention. Your soulmate may have seen something you never intended to show them, and for that reason, their reaction was genuine. They were not prepared with a response. They could not simply smile and move on. They had to process what they had seen. Perhaps they became unusually quiet. Perhaps they asked questions. Perhaps they kept returning to the subject. Perhaps they started looking at you differently. Maybe they even seemed distracted afterward, not because something was wrong, because something was happening inside them. They were updating their picture of you. And sometimes that is one of the strongest forms of attraction, not obsession, not fantasy, not chasing, recognition, the recognition of another person's depth. Your soulmate may have realized that you are far more layered than they understood. You are not only the person they talk to. You are not only the person they miss. you are not only the person whose presence affects their emotions, you are a whole world. And there are rooms inside that world they have not entered yet. Last night, they opened one door. Behind that door was something unexpected, your gift, your talent, your hidden ability, and they were stunned. Perhaps you have spent too much time wondering whether your soulmate notices you. Maybe the question needs to change. Instead of asking, "Do they see me?" ask, "What happens when they finally see all of me?" Because last night, they saw more, and the reaction tells you something. They were surprised because they had underestimated the depth of your potential. They may have thought you were quiet because you had little to say. They may now understand that you were quiet because you were observing. They may have thought you were reserved because you lacked confidence. They may now realize that you simply did not need constant validation. They may have thought you were ordinary because you never advertised your gifts. They now understand that some extraordinary qualities are invisible until the right moment. This is not about becoming someone else to impress them. It is about allowing yourself to stop hiding from yourself. Your talent deserves room. Your creativity deserves expression. Your gift deserves development. And your heart deserves to experience what it feels like when someone genuinely appreciates something you once kept hidden. Perhaps your soulmate's discovery is symbolic of something larger. Maybe you are entering a season where more of your authentic self is becoming visible. The version of you that spent years surviving may now be learning how to create. The version of you that constantly questioned yourself may now be learning to trust your abilities. The version of you that feared judgment may now be realizing that not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. But the right people will not mock what makes you unique. Your soulmate's reaction may have shown you something important. You do not have to become louder to become more visible. You do not have to chase attention. You do not have to prove your worth. Sometimes your authenticity speaks before you do. Imagine the moment again. You are doing something you know how to do. Perhaps your hands are moving naturally. Perhaps your mind is completely focused. Perhaps you are lost in the process. You are not thinking about how impressive you look. You are not thinking about your soulmate watching. You are simply doing what you love. Then you notice them. They are standing there, quiet, watching, and you suddenly realize they have seen everything. For a second, you might feel exposed. You might think, "Oh no, they saw that." But then you look at their expression, and there is something different there. Not ridicule, not disappointment, surprise, admiration, curiosity, maybe even wonder. They may say your name. You look at them. They ask how long you have been able to do that. You answer casually. But they are not casual about it. They want to know more. They want the story. Where did you learn? Who taught you? How long have you practiced? Why did you never tell them? And perhaps you don't know how to answer that last question. Maybe because you were afraid. Maybe because you didn't think it mattered. Maybe because you didn't think they would care. Maybe because you learned long ago not to reveal too much of yourself too quickly. Whatever the reason, something has changed. They know now. And once someone sees a hidden part of you, the relationship can never return completely to the way it was before. Because knowledge changes connection. Understanding changes attraction. And genuine admiration changes the emotional atmosphere between two people. Your soulmate may now be wondering what other beautiful things you have kept hidden. They may begin noticing details, the way you concentrate, the way you become excited when discussing certain subjects, the way your eyes change when you talk about something meaningful, the way you solve problems differently, the way you approach challenges, the way you quietly help people without needing credit. Your talent may have been the doorway, but what they discovered behind it was your character, and that is much more powerful. Maybe your talent required you to practice when you were tired. Maybe it required you to fail repeatedly. Maybe it required you to continue even when nobody applauded. That means your soulmate did not merely discover an ability, they discovered evidence of your resilience. They discovered that you can dedicate yourself to something. They discovered that when you care about something, you can become remarkably persistent. And now they may be thinking about what that means for love. Because if you can be that dedicated to a gift, what happens when you become dedicated to a relationship? If you can nurture something privately for so long, what happens when you decide someone is worth building with? If you can keep believing in a dream despite doubt, what happens when you believe in a shared future? These are the questions that can quietly change someone's perspective. Maybe they were already drawn to you. Maybe they already felt something they could not explain. But now they have another reason to admire you. And admiration can deepen feelings in ways people do not always expect. This is why you should not minimize your gift. Do not say, "It's nothing." Do not immediately dismiss compliments. Do not hide behind embarrassment. When someone sees something beautiful in you, allow yourself to receive it. You do not need to become arrogant. You do not need to believe you are better than anyone else. You simply need to stop pretending that what you carry has no value. There is a difference between humility and self-erasure. Humility says, "I am still learning." Self-erasure says, "There is nothing worth noticing about me." Those are not the same. Your soulmate may have unintentionally reminded you of that distinction. They saw something in you that you had become accustomed to overlooking. And sometimes another person's genuine reaction helps you recognize your own value again. Maybe this hidden talent has been waiting for you to take it seriously. Maybe you should develop it further. Maybe you should share it with a trusted person. Maybe you should allow yourself to enjoy it without worrying where it leads. You don't have to know the entire future. You only need to take the next honest step. Your soulmate's discovery does not mean your talent exists for their approval. It exists because it belongs to you. That is important. Do not turn your gift into another way of measuring whether someone loves you. Do not think, "They were impressed, so now I am worthy." You were worthy before they saw it. You were worthy when nobody knew. You were worthy when you were learning. You were worthy when you made mistakes. You were worthy when you doubted yourself. Their reaction does not create your value. It simply reflects something that was already there. And perhaps that is the real message hidden inside last night's surprise. You have been carrying more than you realize. You have been becoming more than you realize. You have been developing qualities that may not be obvious from the outside. And now someone important has caught a glimpse. Maybe this is the beginning of a new kind of connection, not because everything suddenly becomes perfect. Not because one discovery solves every problem, but because your soulmate now has another reason to ask questions, another reason to understand you, another reason to look closer. They may begin wanting to hear stories from your past. They may ask about dreams you never pursued. They may encourage you to show them more. They may tease you gently about keeping secrets. They may say, "What else can you do that I don't know about?" And perhaps you will smile, because now you know they are curious. They are interested in the person beneath the surface. But there is another possibility. Perhaps they discovered your talent indirectly through something you left behind, a piece of writing, a drawing, a recording, a project, a photograph, a notebook, a creation, something you thought nobody would ever see, and when they found it, they realized it belonged to you. That could explain why their reaction was so intense. They may have been looking at something deeply personal, something you created when you were alone, something that carried your emotions, something that revealed a side of your mind you rarely share. When someone sees the private work of another person, they sometimes feel like they have been invited into a secret room that can create a completely different level of intimacy, because talent often reveals emotion. A song can reveal what words cannot. A painting can reveal what conversation cannot. A story can reveal what someone is afraid to say directly. A craft can reveal patience. A performance can reveal confidence. A solution can reveal intelligence. A creation can reveal imagination. Whatever your talent may be, it has a language, and last night, your soulmate heard that language. Perhaps they suddenly understood something about you that conversations had never explained. Maybe they realized why certain subjects affect you. Maybe they understood why you sometimes become quiet. Maybe they saw the depth behind your sensitivity. Maybe they realized that what they thought was a small hobby was actually a meaningful part of your identity. And now they want to know more. That curiosity matters, because genuine connection is built through discovery. You don't fall in love with a complete biography. You discover a person over time, one story, one habit, one dream, one vulnerability, one unexpected talent, one laugh, one difficult memory, one surprising strength, one hidden hope at a time. Last night, your soulmate discovered another piece. And the discovery may have awakened something inside them. Maybe they started thinking about you afterward. Maybe they replayed the moment. Maybe they wondered why you had never shown them before. Maybe they felt proud. Maybe they felt slightly embarrassed that they had not noticed sooner. Maybe they started imagining what you could accomplish if you truly believed in yourself, and perhaps they even wondered whether they could be part of that journey, not as someone who owns your dream, not as someone who defines your success, but as someone who supports you. That distinction matters. The healthiest kind of love does not shrink your gifts, it creates room for them. The right person does not become threatened by your abilities. They become curious about them. They celebrate your growth. They encourage you to become more fully yourself. They don't need you to remain small so they can feel comfortable. They want to see you flourish. Maybe that is what your soulmate felt last night. Not fear of your talent, but fascination with your potential. Perhaps they looked at you and thought, there is so much more to this person than I knew. And maybe you needed someone to see it, not because you cannot see it yourself, but because sometimes hearing another person say, "Wow, you're really good at this," can awaken a part of you that has been sleeping. Let this moment inspire you. Do not become obsessed with their reaction. Instead, ask yourself what their discovery awakened inside you. Do you want to practice more? Do you want to create again? Do you want to stop hiding? Do you want to revisit an old dream? Do you want to finally show someone what you can do? Maybe this is your reminder that the gifts you buried are not necessarily gone. They may simply be waiting, waiting for courage, waiting for time, waiting for permission you do not need from anyone else. And maybe your soulmate accidentally gave you the smallest push, not because they intended to, but because their surprise showed you something. You have become so accustomed to your own abilities that you forgot they were remarkable. Think about that, the things that feel ordinary to you may be extraordinary to someone else. Your ability to understand, your ability to create, your ability to notice details, your ability to make people laugh, your ability to explain complicated things simply, your ability to make something beautiful, your ability to stay calm, your ability to remember details, your ability to listen, your ability to organize chaos, your ability to turn pain into art, your ability to encourage someone when they are struggling. Talent is not always something